these two settle in, I'm going to open up the 6:30 public hearing for City Council petition 33-18 Dean J. Mazzarella, change the zoning of 8 lots of land from Residence B zoning district to the commercial zoning district located along the north side of Mechanic and the south side of the unimproved portion of Glendale Street, and also the unimproved Milton Street and adjacent portion of Glendale Street, all shown on a plan entitled Plan to Accompany Petition for Zone Change, dated January 10th, 2018. I have someone to present this petition, please? Sure.
Anthony, do you have the duplex one too?
I didn't grab that one.
I got mine.
Good evening, my name is Anthony Cleves. I'm with Whitman & Bingham Associates, design engineers for the property owner, Dean Mazzarella. We just stepped out for a minute, we'll be right back in. So just the plan that was referenced is this one here that shows the proposed property to be changed. One point of clarification, on the petition to the city council, it made a notation that there are 8 parcels to be rezoned. It's actually 7. Just the background of that was an error on my part. Originally, when we put the application together, we were using old assessor's information when we first started getting involved in the project. And at that time, there were 2 lots on the assessors down here. It was assessor's map 167, parcel 70 and 3. And then since that time, the assessors have merged those 2 parcels and become 1. So I removed parcel 3 in the reference of the petition, but I neglected to change the 8 to a 7 in there. The property area is still the same, and that's this outline here. You can see it better. I passed out some of the color from the Leominster GIS. Just kind of zooms out a little bit from the area. Again, it was mentioned in the petition. So we have Mechanic Street, comes down here, out to the connector, out to 190 and Route 2, Commercial Drive to the mall Whitney Field, Upper Mechanic Street, out past Fidelity and Crossroads. And so the area of the rezone proposal is this blue dashed line in this area here. So you can see the purple here is existing commercial. Reddish is existing residence B. We have some industrial over here and some mixed use in this area. So we're just looking to extend that commercial IC credit union, a point of reference here. Just looking to extend that around our properties.
Anthony, can you count out the lots for me? I mean, I can see them here, but.
And I can then
Yeah.
click on the zoomed in one there too.
I'm assuming that's, oh, it's blue. It used to be red.
So you say you're going, so you're switching to 7.
Yeah, so
It's 7, but one of them's,
Is this one right here?
one of them's a pizza that's on a commercial.
that's Milton Street. So
That's a street.
so it's easier to see on this plan here.
Show me that one.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So again, so you can see it.
Is that one that goes from street to street, that's considered one lot?
This is not considered a lot.
That's the,
That was how
paper road.
it was mentioned, Milton Street, the unimproved section of Milton Street.
Right.
So the 7 lots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And that's as, you know, as it's listed in the assessors.
And
One
2 of
time.
them, well, one of them is almost all in commercial right now, it's just a corner of it, and the other one, it's about a third of it? Is that the way-
Probably less than a third, but yeah, absolutely. So this parcel back here, you know, almost its entirety is in the commercial zone, so there's a commercial zone when it comes through. A sliver of this one is in the commercial, and the rest is in
Well, that's
residential.
just a line to show you, that's the annex, this is the line showing you.
So right now, most of this upper lot right here is already in commercial.
Correct.
So it's just that little sliver you're changing.
Yeah, so the purple in here, so this is one of our lots right in here. It's pretty much all commercial, a little bit of commercial existing now. So it's extending that commercial throughout the remainder of the property.
How many homes are there on
Zero.
which lots?
There's no existing
No existing
homes.
homes.
Yeah. There's a little building on the left-hand side, and you may be able to see it in some of the aerials.
Yeah.
It's kind of used for seasonal use.
Can I just, I got two more billboards here. So, I'm just here representing Dean Mazzarella tonight, that's it, and for purposes of disclosure. Just representing myself, there's nobody else that's owner of the property, so that's all I'm doing, is representing my own interest. So how I got, people say, well, why'd you get that property, why'd you sit on it so long? Before 190 technically opened, there was a planning director named Murray, not Ned, but prior to that, there was another planning director. And he wrote a final letter to the, I don't know if it's in the file somewhere, but he wrote a final letter saying, hey, 190's coming, city better get ready. In fact, he even went to the extreme of saying, you ought to think about making Spruce Street one way and Mechanic Street another way, because it's gonna have a huge impact on the city in a positive way. And the beginning of 190 is essentially gonna start right at Mechanic Street. So, little by little, each one of those lots, I don't think any one of them or two was the same owner, so it took me a long time to kind of assemble all of these lots. And that was really the motivation behind it, is to do something, commercial, office, or whatever. Shortly after I got enough of properties together, I got approached by a real estate person that represented Novacore. Novacore was where Polysar, Solar Chemical, all those different names. They wanted to move their head offices. They were renting space at Crossroads. They wanted to put their sort of corporate headquarters here. They thought that was going to be a great place to do it. They put it on auction to the real estate agent, and they were beginning to assemble all their plans, and then they just unilaterally decided that they were going to make a shift in the company, and they sold everything. So they sold the plant, sold the land, they sold everything, and that ended the auction on that. So over time, I've been slowly getting rid of sand in the area. And it just became that time where, 30 years in some cases, the land just sat there. My real estate tax bill now is, I don't know, $5,000 a year, $5,500, and it just sits there. And so the amount of money I've invested over the long haul, plus the money in taxes over the years, probably wasn't a great financial investment, but I was really committed to the property not to do housing. I built housing at the same time if I wanted to. I left West Street and Bartel, we built 5 units there, condominiumized them, sold them, and I could have just went right down the street and did the same thing and cashed out. Housing market was really good. Our units sold for $180,000. I would have done very well, cashed out, that would have been the end of that. But I really was committed to the property because I felt something really good ought to go there, something well built, something that blends in with the neighborhood, and also, again, capitalizes on the fact that 190 is right there. So the closest proximity you can get, other than Fidelity Bank or whatever, would be there. The next thing that sort of came up, with my boy go, is, as you remember, the city hired a company, VHB, to look at zoning. And one of the locations was Mechanic Street. And if you look way back to Mechanic Street, a lot of Mechanic Street was businesses on the bottom and then residential at the top, so that somebody might have had a mom and pop operation and they rented a unit in there. That's pretty much how it went. And then they kind of got away from that because everybody headed to strip malls, all of that. So the city looked at some of the major corridors in the area where people are coming in saying, hey, we'd like to open a business, but it's not zoned right. So places like Pleasant Street, and Lower Merion, and Lancaster Street, and Central Street, where there's 3 or 4 different zones, and then Mechanic Street. I never had a conversation with VHB or anybody about the property. They came in with a recommendation that Mechanic Street ought to be that overlay district. So in the process, from 2008 on, for 4 years, the recommendation at the time from VHB was that the Mechanic Street corridor overlay should go all the way to IC Credit Union. And so it sat there for 4 years, and no comments were made. At the very end, sort of things changed a little bit. It was removed, from that, and now the zoning ends at 7th Street. And so that means you can put a business under the overlay district. You can put a business anywhere from downtown to 7th Street, but you can't put a business on this property. It's not zoned right. And again, overlay is different than commercial. So I had Anthony do, where's the one of the duplexes? So we looked at, is this highest and best use to put single-family houses? And then we looked and we talked to real people in the real estate business, and we said, it's difficult at the cost of construction today to put single-family houses on Mechanic Street, and the answer every time is, it's a commercial area. It's a commercial area. So we looked at, well, what about putting duplexes? And you can see the line goes right across where it's already commercial, and then there are 2 lots up in the back, which aren't part of this project at all. I don't know if you have another plan to show that, but it's not part of that at all. It was never part of this. It has nothing to do
Are
with
those
it.
yours too?
Yes. So it's never part of it. It's not on the plans. It's just land that sits there, and again, it's not part of this. And so we looked at maybe the duplexes, and then the reality is, again, the cost of construction today, put up the duplex and sell it, you're gonna be in the mid-200s, 2.25 to 239, 249 for half a unit. And then again, is somebody gonna come into Leominster? Nothing, I'm not saying anything negative, but you can go to Chapman Place and get something for around $200,000 right now, single floor, and it really meets the things. So we're back to, what do you do with this property? I mean, you do a 40B with the property and try to maximize it? What do you do with it, right? And it always reverts back to the original intent, which was commercial and office. And so at this point, our business has really grown, and it continues to grow, and it continues to grow, and we're not in any one space. We're at 3 different places. It doesn't function well. And so part of the building would be for us. Anybody keeps saying, well, how much of the building? Well, I don't know yet. How much would you rent out? I don't know yet, because I don't know if the land's gonna be changed, I don't know if the land's gonna actually have the zoning change on it. So I really can't talk to anybody about who's gonna come here. But what I do know is, I didn't buy this land, it wasn't a 30-year plan to put a fast food restaurant there, or a gas station, or anything that's gonna have a negative effect to the fact that it is, on that side. I mean, I probably built, and my daughter, we probably invested more in the east side than it's probably been, there are no other houses that are, if you look at the values of homes, there are no other houses there. And both of them are located within, 200 feet of the property. So we're not gonna, I have a vested interest in Ward 2, French Hill, and in that land. Again, currently right now, you can put in this current zone, you can put a church there. I've had a few of those sort of inquiries. You can put a funeral home. You can do medical office and medical with special permit from the planning board. So there are things that, there are things that you can do there, either by right or special permit.
Yeah.
But it always reverts back to what's the highest and best use of the property. And again, people will ask, well, what about, traffic? Is traffic increased on the roads? About 11,000, 12,000 cars a day? Yes. Is it busy in the morning? Yes. Is it busy late in the afternoon? Yes. Is it busy when there's an accident on 190 and people trying to get off? The answer is yes. But I pull in and out of there. Sometimes you gotta have patience. I left there at 5, 10, 2, I don't know, it wasn't a minute, and I was able to pull up. I've been there at different times. Then I also ran an experiment several years ago, and I sold flowers down there. And I did on Mother's Day, and I did it, and I said, I have to try this to see what happens with traffic. We could do between 35 and 45 cars an hour. And never had a backup of the property, nobody ever had a problem getting out. And I totally realized that if the city council changed the zoning, that when we put a full plan back, and I agreed, I said to the neighbors when I met with them, I'd come back and we'll talk about where the dumpster's gonna go, the air conditioning units, those kinds of things that we've had past experience on. And we would have to come back here, and that would be one of the things the planning board would do is look at the traffic issue. And it might require a deceleration lane that comes off the highway that adds another lane that sort of slowly takes you off and into the property. But that would be addressed at the planning board at the time when we come in with a real concrete plan. And I don't know how much of it would be office and how much would be commercial, but what I do know is there's a different standard for parking depending on what it is. So some people say, well, there's 40 parking spots there. Well, there's 1,000, over 1,000 maybe, if you take all the Searstown and put it all together at the Mall of Whitney Field. But those spots aren't filled every day, right? Easter it was busy, and the holidays it's busy, but for the most part, you can get on any day of the week and, you know, it's not even 1/10 full. So that's why, you know, we purchased the property. I want to develop that property and see it under my control. That's been planned for 30 years. I don't want to sell it off. I really don't want to control the quality, the landscaping, the whole look of the property. It is one of the main pieces, it's the last developable piece of land in the city. And if this doesn't fly, I don't know how anybody can talk about developing the landfill if this little piece of property here on the corner that abuts everything else that's commercial, the treatment plant, Cumberland Farms, Fidelity Bank, and all the other development that's going on. I guess I should have come in before everybody started and try to redo my zone. But I didn't. I had a long-term commitment to it, and I scaled back the project from 18,000 square feet down to about 14. So the first time I invited the neighbors in, that was the original plan, scale the project back. I'm comfortable with the 14,000. And again, I realized traffic has to be addressed, and where the dumpster and air conditioning units have to go. And the rest is in things.
So all these lots will be put into a common one lot or two lots, depending on what you build out?
There were actually more lots before, but the
Right.
assessor combined them.
Yep.
And I get taxed on some of the lots right now because of the flower place over there. I get taxed on commercial, and some. Oh, you already saw it. Some of the pieces are already in
So I can
So how do
take you
how do you
through
have to go through Milton? You have to go through Ryan Court?
Yeah, you go to land court and get discontinued. It's a private road, so I own both halves,
Right.
either side.
To the middle of the private
I know
road.
that story.
Yeah, and we won't be, and a lot of the neighbors called and said they were told, you know, somebody was petitioning, going house to house and said, oh, you know, it's gonna impact you up here, and we're not gonna go up Glendale, we're never gonna run a road up Glendale. If anything, we put a fence at the top, you know, I talked to the real, you know, some of the people that directly about it, and their concerns were that we don't develop, you know, put the road through, they were told we put the road through, that we go through Glendale, and I'm like, no, yeah, I got a grandson up there, that's the, you know, I'm not, believe me, that's the last thing on my mind. Everything is gonna be from the edge of Glendale down to Mechanic Street. Yeah, and you'd never be able to climb that in.
So I can take it through
Yeah.
kind of our concept at this point. Again, until we have a zoning change that allows us to do anything, you know, we don't have full site plans, and anything we do, obviously, will come back before the planning board through site plan review to work out any details, but this was kind of the thought process. You have a building close to the existing commercial area, IC credit union, have an entrance, you know, decent distance away from the set of lights here, there's a median here, beyond that, and then allowing ourselves a buffer area. So this is showing about 50 feet away from the property line of the nearest residential person, so, I'm trying not to
There's
over.
trees there now.
Yeah, there's some trees in here, and this land here is about 8 to 10 feet higher than what this grade is now at the bottom. And then perspective up at Glendale Street, this is about 30 feet higher. So our access was gonna be, you know, intended to come in that fashion here, access your parking lot, since we're driving into a parking lot, we're backing onto the street, coming to the parking lot. Building, again, kind of just conceptually screened in dumpster area, handicap parking, loading area. You know, trying to give us we have a little bit of setback here, just the nature of the lot allows us to have some more space in here. If, as Mr. Mazzarella mentioned, if we needed to do some traffic improvements, we have the room to do that. Mechanic Street is wide in this area, so you know, if we needed to do deceleration lane, use some Mechanic Street, use some of this property. I don't foresee anything insurmountable traffic-wise for that.
And there's never a plan to come in from Glendale on the backside to.
Yeah, I mean, we have a 30-foot
I know.
drop, so it's, but even if it was, you know, the intent was always to kind of come in off of Mechanic Street. This is a neighborhood, you know, if we really want our non-residential access to come in through the main street here.
Anthony, just quickly, how high is the retaining wall at the back end of that parking lot?
Yep, right in here. So again, we're not into full design at all, but we envision, you know, maybe 8-foot wall in here. So if we were to push,
No, the
'cause we
retaining
were-
wall.
right.
Retaining wall.
yeah, absolutely, like 8 to 10 feet. So we had looked at going all the way to Glendale Street. Now we need a 30-foot retaining
Right.
wall. So, but by coming in a little bit, we can grade down, and then have a wall to support the rest of that. So, 8 to 12 feet, something like that. We come down 2 to 1, 3 to 1 slope. So by the time you get down here, you've already lost 15, 20 feet or so. So this wall isn't gonna be, a 30-foot wall.
You probably have to put some kind of barrier up top, right?
Yeah, so that's, we end up maybe having some fencing up in here. Again, all typical details I think could work out through the site plan review process. And landscaping, and maybe we add in, fencing on the residential side, some landscaping, some evergreens, things like that.
Anthony, where's the hill?
It's right on there.
The hill, so that the existing,
Yeah.
so it kind of starts here
Okay.
and probably ends, right about here. So you actually, right in here. So you kind of cut that back a little bit more, but not much.
Okay.
Not much.
That's what's trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Anthony, what's the full size of the area that is proposed to be rezoned?
How
So-
many acres is
How many acres, if it,
Oh, yeah, that was a little less than 65,000. The whole area is about 65,000.
It's about an acre and a half here.
Yeah.
It's big.
I know,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, so when you,
Well, that was
so
small
let
lots.
me back up. So the lot areas is about 65,000, but when you include Milton Street, a portion of Glendale, a portion of Mechanic, you get to be 88,260, and you start taking into the right of ways and
Over 2
things like that. Yeah. And that takes into half of Mechanic, half of Glendale.
does the board have any other questions? Open up to the public. Does anyone have any comments, questions? And if you do, could you please stand and give us your name and address? Yes, sir.
Yes, David Gagney. I actually live in Fitchburg, unfortunately. But my family, Gagney
I
Realty
think the mayor
Corp.
had you say that, but.
No. My family, Gagney Realty Corp., my dad Ed, and my grandfather Clarence, some of our properties down at the mall and everything, we're long-term investors in the city of Leominster. I'm third generation now. And as I like to tell people, born here, raised here, die here. When we do a project, we're not flipping it and just move on to the next. We're not trying to just maximize profit and just goodbye on to the next project. So I feel that what Mr. Mazzarelli is trying to do is just add to the value of not only, say, his land, but to the city of Leominster. And the fact that he's taking into concern like pushing the building all the way towards the IC Credit Union, as Anthony showed, and, downsizing his plans a little bit, the landscaping, the lighting, vegetation, all things that you guys would, impose on him. He's fully aware of, and he wants to be able to step back at the end of the day and say, yes, that is mine. I am proud of it, like we are with our properties. So I feel that, in my opinion, that this would be better than just an empty sandlot, and it would be better than trying to build homes at a price point that wouldn't make sense. So just in my opinion, this is a good use for this sand pit. And especially if he's gonna end up using a good portion of it for his own business. It's like I said, it's a long-term investment in the city. And that's what he's looking for, like I said, not just build it, flip it, and move on. And who cares what he puts? He wants to be able to step back at the end of the day and say, yes, when someone asks, that is mine.
That's good. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Hi, Tom Canakia, 315 Jonathan Street, Leominster. Could I just get a little clarification on the map that was shown earlier?
Which one?
Sure.
Which particular one I got?
Yeah, lots.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned the two lots being, that if they were, the chief assessor made a mistake regarding the lots being two lots being divided or combined into one.
If I can,
If you would, please.
the chief assessor did not make a mistake.
Okay.
Let me point that out. Years ago, this area here was assessed as 2 lots. As you have over time, many areas were 20-foot lots, you know, things like that, and then over the years, they started to get combined and combined. So when our office was originally involved in the project, there was a lot line right here. I'm gonna get them backwards, sorry, but one was map 167 parcel 70, one was parcel 3. So when we originally got involved, and when I prepared the paperwork for the city council, I was using old information that we had in-house. And then through the submission process, the assessors, as they did the abutters list, caught my mistake and said, no, geez, you know what? These lots were combined. It's only parcel 70 now. There is no parcel 3. So I updated my paperwork. I took off parcel 3 from here from the list. But unfortunately, I didn't change the 8 to a 7 on my paperwork.
Okay. One more question,
Sure.
if I may. Regarding the 2 Gagny properties, let's see, parcel 24 and parcel 25. Yes, Sal, I believe that you asked if those properties are owned by Mr. Mazzarella,
And they are.
and they are, okay.
Same thing, at the time we're getting through this, that's property, I believe, changed hands, so they are currently under the Mazzarella.
Okay, one more and then I'll leave you be. I noticed the lines indicating the land proposed to be rezoned from residential B to commercial actually extend up through a piece of city-owned property.
Yeah, so if that was the
Shows this
plan you
parcel,
have,
which shows this
that may
parcel,
have,
parcel
yeah,
23.
that had gotten revised, and unfortunately may have gotten.
That too had gotten revised?
So, this line never changed, but this leader was a stray leader, went off to the side, so thank you for pointing out every mistake I made. I appreciate that. But,
Quite the time to correct them.
but the line never changed, so the area proposed has never changed. This line was always what we submitted. Unfortunately, this arrow went out to nowhere. And as I mentioned in the petition, it mentioned 8 parcels. There were 8, but now it's actually 7. But again, this boundary line that we proposed has always stayed the same.
You always go to the middle of the street.
Yep, we went to the middle of the street. And sometimes that, in different areas, sometimes you go to the sideline.
That could, because.
Yep, on this one you could, because it's not, you know, this exists commercial up here,
Mhm.
so it doesn't really impact this so much, because you have that right of way there.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes, state your name and address, please.
Yes, Teresa Jizzy, 178 12th Street in Leominster. My only concern is the impact on the traffic. It's a nightmare now. I think residential homes would be less of an impact than business would be.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Brian Tessa, 705 Mechanic Street in Leominster. I'm speaking to you today in regards to a piece of property that I own on the corner of 12th and Mechanic, property that abuts my family. They're in their 80s and 90s currently. I'll simply dovetail a couple of things. No turnoff lane on this property is going to change any of the traffic issues. It's 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag, if you get my meaning. The noise, the crime, the full impact has to be considered in the light of the residents that have been there for decades in many cases. I speak in opposition to City Council Petition 3318. City of Leominster, by observation, has an ever-growing vacancies of both commercial and retail spaces. What would the need be to increase said vacancies? And just how would the citizens of Leominster benefit from this? The simple and obvious fact is that they would not. There are going to be people that will benefit, but the residents of this neighborhood, I doubt. The neighborhood in question will continue to bear a disproportional negative impact, as it has for many, many years now. This is the same general area that has a landfill, has the treatment plant, has for years been an area where additional growth has happened. And let me just clarify, I am not anti-capitalist by any means. I am pro-smart growth though. And I don't think that the folks that have been residents in this neighborhood for years, corner of 12th and Mechanic is where I grew up, so I can speak to this. You can't toss them to the wind for the sake of progress. least that's my opinion. I think it's important to remember, these people have lived here, they've paid their taxes, they've been good citizens, and they don't have anyone that will speak on their behalf. So here I am tonight, trying to encourage folks to be attentive to the fact that the traffic will be absolutely insane. It will be. It is now. If you grant this, it'll eventually choke off. Basically, it'll stop. It'll be like every other major access road in the city of Leominster. And I know this is now the gateway to the city of Leominster, Mechanic Street, my little corner of the universe here. But I ask you, on behalf of the folks that live there currently and have to deal with it, residents is probably the least problematic for what to do with this property. And while I know it may not suit the current plans by the petitioner, my opinion is Residence B makes good sense for this part of French Hill and this part of the neighborhood. It's also important to remember 12th Street now will be an off-ramp to Mechanic Street. So for all the folks that live in French Hill, on Water Street and Spruce Street, get ready, because it's coming. It's going to be the off-ramp to Mechanic Street. So when everything backs up on Johnson Street, you're going up 12th Street. And should this particular parcel be zoned into business, let's just say for the sake of argument that you want to drive into a particular strip mall or business, whatever it is. If you're going west on Mechanic Street, you can turn right into it. But when you leave, you have to cross that major area of traffic. There's no way to exit that property except to go west on Mechanic Street. And then people are going to wind up, who want to go back on Route 2 or 190, they're going to find a place to turn around. It's going to be on 12th Street or somewhere very close by. Now, we can say, what's the big deal? Traffic is there already, doesn't really impact people. Spend time there. Maybe listen to the people that are most impacted by this. And that's really what my message is here today. That there has to be an accommodation. Someone seeks to change the zoning. The zoning was Residence B for a reason. It's a French Hill neighborhood. If this is the last buildable place in Leominster, again, I would suggest to you, we're at a loss of commercial properties? I mean, is there a need for this? That's the question that I really ask. The planning board can mitigate the encroachment of commercialism by denying this petition. And that's what this is. It's encroaching on the neighborhood. The board should, in my opinion, protect the Residence B zone neighborhood. It's a quality of life issue. It really is for the vast majority of the residents that will be impacted by this. And if you, like me, had your 90-year-old mother, 93-year-old mother living there and her 80-year-old sisters, could you in all honesty say, this will be good for you folks? Or that it won't be that bad for you folks? I can't see any way that this benefits the neighborhood at all. And for your time, I thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I wasn't going to speak, but my name is Melissa Bible. I live at 178 Fifth Street in Leominster, and I'm just echoing the sentiments of Mr. Testa. I was at the neighborhood meeting, I was at the city council meeting. The residents who live in French Hill traditionally are either newcomers who are looking to move to Leominster and are looking for an affordable place in an affordable part of the city, and there's a need for affordable housing, or housing that's affordable. Or there are families that have lived there for generations. My parents, I own a house next to my parents. The people 2 houses down bought from their cousins. It's a generational family neighborhood. And to have a commercial area continue to expand, where does that line stop? Does the family next door then say, you know what, you've made it unbearable for me to live here, I'm gonna sell and it's gonna be commercial? Someone else on the other side of the Mechanic Street, Torcumbis, has already said he hopes this petition does go through so that he can make his property commercial. It just continues to spread. I ask that you just put a stop to this. There is a need for housing. That's what it's zoned for, and I hope it continues to remain that way. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes.
I just have to leave. Thank you. The last thing I wanted to say is, and I invite all the neighbors, Anybody wants to come down and sit there with me and watch the traffic, you can pull in and out as many times as you want. You can time it, video it, and see just how long it takes to go east or west. That's the best way to do it, is to sit there on the lot and watch the traffic at any time of day, and invite everybody to come down if you want to do a tour, and do a public notice and meet me down there and show exactly what. I didn't do this project to cash out. This was my intention. I kept the project for 30 years not to cash out. I could have cashed out. I didn't. I want to do a good project for the neighborhood. It's where I spent almost my entire life. I've invested in that neighborhood. At one point, I owned an apartment house on every single street on French Hill. And this has been my life. This is going to have my name on it. When people drive off the connector or whatever, they're always going to be reminded that I had something to do with this project. And I want to be proud of it, and I want it to be a good project, and I want it to look like, when people come into the main entrance of the city, I want them to be proud, and I want them to see this project. The other thing is, I'm proud of the fact that our business is growing, and it's a local business. I have to pack it up and move somewhere else. Most of my customers and our customers are east of here. That's really where we need to be in some cases, but we're close enough near the highway. That's why this location works. We don't have a lot of people that are on site, but we need room. And, haven't thought about moving the retail part of it down, but on the other end, we're getting into lighting, fiberglass light posts and all of that. And it's just all of our business is east of here. It's an easy jump on, very good location for our customers to come out and see us. But anyway, it's up to you. You decide. I think you got enough information. People were great about coming, and that's what the democratic process is all about. And I think your job is just to decide what's the best thing for the city, and is this the right thing? So anyway, I gotta run. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
The petition, I was curious if the petition in its original form, well, the petition right now is obviously different than it was in its original form. I was
It's not.
wondering if it would have to be amended before the
The
city
petition is
council.
not different. And like I mentioned before, the area that's proposed is exactly the same. I drew an arrow to the wrong spot. Again, thank you for picking up that I drew the wrong arrow. But the property listed, both in the petition and on the plan, has never changed. That's been completely accurate from day one. This arrow went up here incorrectly. It should have went to this line. This line has
Okay,
never
so that
changed.
has changed though.
No, this arrow changed because I made a mistake. I drew the
Okay.
arrow to the wrong spot.
The mistake
This
is the
line has
change.
not changed.
I understand.
Yeah, and then this parcel became one. It's still the same piece of property. So this boundary has never changed.
Anthony, that was, just so you know, the assessor did change that. I never knew about it. They never notified me that that was being changed. That was years ago.
But irregardless,
Yeah.
it's the same property.
Right.
Just one last follow-up. The two Gagny properties, I can't see it from here, but are those identified as being owned by Mr. Mazzarella right now on that map?
Not currently, no.
Not currently, no.
Which
Okay.
typical survey
Thank you.
plans, if you're familiar with any kind of land plans, property changes hands. The NF means now we're formally out. We can't constantly go and check every deed every time a property changes hands.
Well, I did check the deed at the registry, and the title changed 6 months ago. I think that's more than enough time to make sure we have proper
Yeah, so
labeling
it's,
on the
we can
lots.
absolutely change that about on
Okay.
that. It doesn't change the area that we're looking to rezone.
I understand. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Yeah. Mr. Bourguignon.
Make a motion to
Well,
close the hearing.
well, before we close the hearing, when do we have to have the recommendation to the city council for? Wouldn't it be,
You want to do a,
you do a site?
site?
Yeah, I would like to do a site,
Okay.
leave the meeting open, do a site and take a look at the traffic from, our perspective. And anybody
All
who
right.
wants to come down.
That's a good idea.
Down and meet us, because they'll announce it.
Does anybody not know what traffic's like in that area?
Oh,
We all do, but we don't. We all do, but we all don't, because you don't live there, you know? I mean, I drive there all the time, but.
As most people do.
30 times.
I mean,
Yeah.
and some of these things that are more isolated areas,
Like, you
you're not
wanna go to
familiar with,
site?
I get, but this one.
well, let's say, do you have making a motion to go to
I am
site?
making a motion to go to site.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Yeah.
I'll second it. Motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we'll have a site visit.
When should it be?
Do you wanna do it now, so that while some people who are interested are
Be
here?
there, or-
What time of day
Because
are you
you
talking
wouldn't be
about doing
notified
it?
as an abutter, but you could always call in.
Well,
Traffic's gonna be very different, 7:10.
You're gonna have to do it
Well, we'll
every
do it
hour.
we'll do it at a time that,
Well, we're gonna do it at a peak time,
yeah,
whether it be
Well, I mean, are
7:30,
we going down
8 o'clock.
traffic, or are we going down the
no,
one
I
property?
think if,
I think a little.
well, I think we do both, we do both, and we can, why don't we, what about like, and I know people work, but what about if a business is proposed to be in there, the business is gonna be open from
9 o'clock.
nine to, well, it
Eight,
depends
let's
what
say
it's.
8:30, right?
All right, so 9 o'clock on a weekday?
Is that good for everybody?
Depends on the day. I think it's unlikely.
Well, for Paul's, I'm like, if we can do it.
So
early,
9
Paul's
o'clock
will be
there at that time probably won't be as bad as 8 o'clock is heavier.
I'm
4
driving
o'clock
by
when
there.
Well,
Southeast
but
is
the
like that
thing,
would be
but the
good.
thing is, what business is gonna open at 8 o'clock in the morning? It
No,
depend, maybe,
I agree.
if it's a medical office, maybe, so we could make it 8 o'clock.
What about 4 or 5?
That's probably like it.
All
I'm
right.
good either way.
That's fine.
So.
You wanna do 4 PM instead?
Yeah, it works.
I
Is that good with you?
wanna hear from the neighbors. When should
4
we be
o'clock?
there? What time is the right time to, is 4 o'clock in the afternoon a good time to get a sense of what traffic is?
Good for who?
Well, good, to give us a sense of what it is.
Okay. Well, to be honest with you, it's, again, if you say you go at 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, you get the morning traffic. If you go between 4 and 6 in the afternoon, you get the evening traffic, the weekend traffic.
Why don't we pick a time that's convenient for people to do it? Because we can always, the planning board can always drive by at those times
Yeah.
and be there.
What
That's
day
what
you
I'm
wanna do
thinking.
Every day,
Yeah.
both, 7,
We're
7:30
doing a
and 5
commuting
o'clock.
day, a weekday,
I drive by at 7, 8, 9, 10.
but do it during the week, because then you're gonna get the traffic flow from commuting. So I don't care what day, I'm good any day.
What day are you looking for?
So 4 PM what day?
Wednesday? Is that what you just said?
I said
What
what
day?
day?
Oh,
What
Wednesday.
day?
You wanna do next Monday?
Let's do it a week from today, or a week from tomorrow.
How's a week from today?
Okay,
Next Monday,
all right,
and then we'll have everything we need for the
At 4
following meeting.
4 o'clock.
You had
4
us call
o'clock.
that as a potential joint meeting, is that not happening?
That is not happening.
Okay, so
Okay.
then that would work.
All right.
All right,
So that's my motion. 4 o'clock, say.
So that would be April 9th.
April 9th at 4 o'clock.
Four
You'll
o'clock.
you'll send a meeting invite?
We can send a meeting invite, yeah.
okay. That's when we'll be there if anyone would like to attend.
4, 9, and 4 PM.
Yeah.
Okay. That's you,
That's my motion.
okay, and we're going to leave the meeting, we're going to leave the public hearing open until our next meeting,
May 7th.
May 7th. And that's at 6:30?
Oh, we have another thing.
I thought we had something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
We have Willard Street subdivision at 6:30.
So 6:40?
6:40.
6:40?
Yeah,
6:40?
that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. for that.
And this hearing is rescheduled, or not, continued to May 7th at 6:40. May 7th is our next meeting. We only have one in April. Okay, so,
Did
do
we
I
get
go
the dates? Times?
We already made the motion voted.
for the
Sidewalk.
sidewalk? Okay, do I have a motion to continue this meeting to May
So
7th?
moved, Eric.
Motion made second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Yep.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
Susan.
Thanks, everyone, for your
Thank you.
input. We're going to go to our regular meeting now. Call to order, please.
Patrick Carlin.
Here.
Fred Frederick.
Here.
Paul Weiser. Here. Bobby Becker. John Souza. Carol Vittorioso.
Chair.
Tom Skerritt.
Minutes of previous meeting, 2.1, March 5th.
Right, read that? All right, sorry, you're right.
Anthony, sail up to Mom.
Oh, sorry. I do not have the March 5th meeting minutes yet. That was the,
This is March 19th,
this is March
okay?
19th. This was the last meeting. I will have March 5th at the next meeting.
Motion to accept.
Have a motion to accept, do I have a second? Paul, and motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that was 2.2. 2.1 we'll do next time. 3.0 plan submitted, none. 4.0, 4.1 plan, old business, none. 5.0 new business. 5.1 was the city council petition for the zone change. Continued to May 7th with a site visit next week. 6.0 communications. 6.1 planning board recommendation for city council petition 3918 Prime Wellness Centers. Grant a special permit to build a medical marijuana cultivation facility located at 1771 Lock Drive. Do you have anyone here to speak on behalf of that petition?
That's just communication.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is a right.
A recommendation.
The city council has asked us for a recommendation
So-
for this, and they provided all the material you should have is what they provided us for backup
Got it.
on that.
This is,
That's near, it's off of Ashland Street.
Yeah, I can give you a little more information.
This was before us prior as
Well,
well.
it's,
Yeah, that was.
there was something similar. It was actually at 1775 Lock Drive, and that was the dispensary.
Yeah.
And you may recall that they did, I think they did an A&R, split off a small portion of that lot for the dispensary, and that they're next door, so on the larger portion of that same lot, was on the site plan as potentially as a warehouse type building, industrial type building. That was not related to the dispensary. So this petition for a special permit to the city council is for that other building, that other piece of property right next door.
And they're gonna be.
For something different.
For cultivation, so the
Cultivation.
dispensary was for the,
That was, yeah.
transactions,
It was
Yes.
medical
cultivation
And
is
they're
the grow
two
facility.
separate, right? Two separate.
They are
companies?
separate, it's the same company, Prime Wellness,
Okay.
yes.
Did we have another company ask about just cultivation site just the
Yes.
other day?
So 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
Middlesex Integrative Medicine is proposing a cultivation site at 25 Mohawk Drive, which is about 1,000 feet,
Which is Mohawk Wire and Cable.
Yeah, it's right in the same neighborhood,
Right.
but a little down
Can
the
Rock
we
street.
Drive.
have more than one of these things in the same?
but, well, the issue is that,
One's
Is that- the ordinance says they're not to be within 1,000 feet of each other.
Of
Another,
special permit.
facility, yeah.
so that's the,
That's the only hangup that we have, and that's not a hangup then? Because it's not 1,000 feet away?
Right, they're
it's
not.
not,
they're
so
not
that is
1,000 feet
that
from
is an
each
issue.
other.
That is
Yeah,
They are
correct.
right.
It is.
So less than 1,000 feet as opposed to the one at Mohawk
Are you
Wire
sure?
and Cable.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, down
Because
the end,
when
yeah,
we
yeah,
did the
right,
one for Middlesex,
See?
that's the one that's about 1,000 feet away. This new one, this called the third one, is in between those two. So it's definitely less than 1,000 feet from either one of those other
So why do we
facilities.
need three of
Well, let me
Oh,
ask
okay.
this, where in
So
the
the water
process
cable
is this cultivation facility comparative to the one that we talked about the other day?
Not far, if you
We
took
did
a left at the bottom.
No, in the
but in the
process,
process,
Yeah, oh, okay.
in the
Um,
licensing
very
through the
similar.
state process.
We did the same thing, and we were asked for a recommendation on that same one that we did last time.
Okay.
So, same point in the process. Through the city council, the special permit process, I would imagine.
So the last one was cultivation and selling?
Just cultivation
Just
was
cultivation.
Middlesex, the one at
And this one is
25
gonna
Mohawk.
be both.
Well, they're two separate facilities.
Yeah,
Right,
one's
but they're
expensive.
both
But they're next to
owned
each
by
other,
this
it's one
One
parent
company.
company, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So my suggestion is, because I mean, it's two, they're not both dispensaries, and one's cultivating and the other one's dispensing. And they're the same owner.
Same company.
So I think if we're inclined to make a recommendation, a positive recommendation to the city council, maybe we just note that this is what the ordinance says and what was the intent behind it. Because if you read it literally, they can't they can't do this.
Yeah,
Right?
I can read through that section.
Because the other one is being built, right?
No, because this one's within 1,000 feet of,
Dispensary and the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's gotta be two dispensaries.
Kristen. No, two cultivations.
So,
Two
at the end of Lock Drive, which is 1771,
Yeah.
that is where they wanna put it in? So where's the next one? Where's the other one? Is it this little lot?
See what you're looking at here.
It's where a building is right
Is it,
now.
isn't it over here in Mohawk, the other
It's up
one?
top.
Yes, so Middlesex Integrated Medicine
Yes.
is
It's
over
over
here.
here?
Yes.
So that's 1,000 feet away, isn't it? That's a
Here,
long way,
see this
though.
little parcel right here?
Yeah.
That's where they want to put, that was the one that we approved last summer.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So that and then the Middlesex
And
one
that's the
are just
dispensary?
about 1,000 feet apart.
And that's the
yes.
dispensary, because it's
Where-
a small
Yeah.
building.
and where's the one they're
Yes.
proposing? Here.
Right
Right
here,
here.
yes.
So that's
So
all
So
we-
it's
what's-
certainly within 1,000 feet.
Because it's
of
within
those
1,000
two.
feet, but the
Yeah.
question is, but one's a dispensary, our definition covers, so
All of
one's a
them.
dispensary, one cultivates, and it's under the, I'm assuming, under the same owner.
It's Prime Wellness
Same
Company, it's the same owner
So-
as the original.
Well, it's a good spot for both of them, because it's,
Well,
No churches or
if we're
no schools
inclined to recommend approval to the city council, I just think we need to make that aware that that's, and cite that
Mhm.
section of the ordinance. Can you read it? Can you
Yes.
read it?
So what are we saying? We'd recommend it if you're willing to not follow your own ordinance?
Well,
No,
but,
just
well, can you
highlight
read, can you
that.
read it?
Yes. So, no registered marijuana dispensary, and the definition of a marijuana dispensary includes all types of uses, including, where did I see it?
so can you have a dispensary and a brewery
But-
within
but-
1,000?
The term registered
Fine,
marijuana
well,
dispensary includes all types of, being a dispensary, also a cultivation and
Either
processing
way.
and any type of,
Anything.
All right,
Yes.
so it doesn't,
So,
yeah.
there's not
Right.
two different ones.
no,
Right.
and it's RMD for short. No RMD may be located within 500 feet of a residential zoning district, church, or other religious use. No RMD may be located within 1,000 feet of a school, childcare facility, family child care home, park, playground, or other registered marijuana dispensary.
So the term there is other, but,
Mhm.
but where dispensary, the key term is other. So if I were the applicant, my argument would be, well, it's not other, it's mine, but under the definition, they both apply, so I don't, but see, that's why I think, I'm inclined to think they can't do it, the way you interpret the ordinance.
If we're talking about permitted uses, that's not a permitted use.
Well, that's my,
Yeah.
If they want to
And
amend the ordinance, or they.
It may be the one company, but it's two separate facilities doing two separate things.
Could they combine
that's right.
with the other?
I mean, they could,
If they built it on the other side of the dispensary, they would be okay, because they would have the 1,000 feet buffer.
Well, then it's next to its own
Can-
dispensary.
Can you,
Right.
Yeah.
can you have a dispensary and a grocery in the same building?
that's what. my
Not
thought-
under this ordinance, I
They're all
don't think.
dispensaries under the ordinance.
Well, they are all considered. in
Well,
that
if they're all
definition.
considered the same, why
I mean,
wouldn't
they
they allow?
could cultivate and
a dispen-
distribute in the
Correct.
same building.
Why wouldn't they have this one building on that lot?
Yeah, that's
And
my
have- If
point.
it's under the
That's what I
same
said.
law or.
If they can do it in one building,
Yeah,
Right, why
you
wouldn't
know,
they be able
why
to
don't
do
they
that?
just use the one building that, you know, that
good
is
question.
in compliance?
And now we're writing their plan for them.
Well,
No, but why, if you can't have them next to each other within 1,000 feet, just have them both.
All right,
No,
so I
no,
guess,
but-
if, just quickly, either we're looking at it completely independently, that it meets the criteria, I guess, not counting the other RMD, but it's not within 1,000 feet of a house, of a school, or a
Right, the
park,
only
or
thing it
playground,
doesn't
whatever.
touches the
Are
1,000.
we recommending that, okay, it be accepted, or are we taking into consideration other recommendations we've already made, which I guess it wouldn't comply with?
well, it doesn't,
Don't
it doesn't,
mess now.
I think when you read the ordinance, they can't do it because it's within 1,000 feet of,
Then I would say that makes it very easy.
Now,
for
they could
us.
put it under the same roof as the building they're in
Same.
now, and I think it would be legal, but they'd have to, you know, expand that building. Do something there versus, you know, having it in a different building on a different lot.
That's not what we have before us.
Yeah.
I know, no, I
I
know
know,
that.
but I think more of a point of why, I don't know if we can recommend approval, because why don't they just put it under the same,
Building, same roof.
Same roof.
Concur.
I mean, that just makes more sense to me, especially if you're gonna build the building.
Kristen, you're not sure about that?
I just was going through the ordinance to see if it mentioned anything about having concurrent uses
So
of the same building.
1775 already
Well, I think
has
dispenses,
approval from the city council?
dispensaries are allowed to grow what they dispense, or they can bring it in from a different
I'm not
location.
sure about that.
Christine,
Is that in the-
have they already been approved by the city council in 1775 as a dispensary?
Yes, yes, they have received their special permit
So they've already
for
gotten
the
that.
very first, yes. And we approved their site plan back,
Right.
And that's
or
like
last summer, I
3/4
think.
of an acre.
And they split
So
that
there must
lot.
be some reason why they had to split it up. 'Cause I bet they can't have them both.
Well,
It's the regulations, and this gets all into the recreational marijuana and the way that that's being handled, but if you go back to the Department of Public Health and the original way that the medical marijuana was set up, and what rules they had to go through in the application process. I don't know. It's different, and I don't know if they've changed it since then. I don't know if maybe they came up with this idea with new information that was available. I don't know if they thought this was an option back when they first did it, or they may have, looked at to combining them. But I've always felt that they were considered two separate entities. And so Prime Wellness, they can have up to 3 facilities throughout Massachusetts. They would
This
just
would be
happen
2.
to do 2 here in Leominster. But can you combine the dispensary with a grow facility or some, I don't know. I guess we'd have to find out.
so
Does
that,
does the council know?
Is it because, besides those two being
You know-
close
I'm
to
not
each other,
your question.
is it
You're not
because
answering.
there's two,
stop, can we have one conversation, please? Can we have one conversation? Go ahead, Fred.
is it because there's two growing that are too close to each other too?
Because they're both considered dispensaries, even though one cultivates and one dispenses,
Right.
distributes.
But then there's
But they're
another
within
one.
1,000 feet of each other. The other one, don't worry about the other one. It's just because
It's not that close?
that one is outside, according to Kristen, it's outside of the
That
1,000
one's
feet.
1,000
No.
feet from the one that was already
Okay, I
approved.
was confused.
Yeah.
It meets all the
Okay.
This
All right.
this
Then
third one
that's
we're
fine.
talking about today is in
It's
between
the
two.
other one,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
The one in Mohawk is definitely 1,000 feet.
So,
Okay.
anyway,
Yeah, we checked that.
what,
But why aren't they here?
I don't know, it's just a recommendation.
Okay. Well, if I was gonna put a recommendation,
Well, I
they
know,
might show
well,
up to
I
the
mean,
meeting.
the last people were here for recommendations, so what is, where's the board want to do?
I would say no.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion. Doesn't meet the
Motion
statute.
made and second, all those,
What is
the, what's the motion?
Motion.
I would say it does not meet the statute, we recommend no, it not be granted.
So how would we phrase that?
We were asked for.
Because
You're making,
recommendation.
we're not recommending,
Okay.
We recommend to deny a special permit at
Yes.
this property location.
Because it does not meet the definition under the statute.
exactly what they said.
Those-
Motion made and seconded, all those,
As
And then
we
just
see it.
quote the 1,000 feet.
Yeah, I'll reference the section.
Yeah.
all those in favor to recommend to deny the special permit?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Where's my agenda?
Pods with pods.
I just don't know
Planning,
why.
okay, 6.2, planning board recommendation for city council petition.
Sounds pretty cool.
I'm sorry. Well, no, that was just a recommendation, okay. Planning board recommendation for city council petition 4318, Jim Repass, SVP and Mike Stanley, CEO, Transit X. Grant an easement to Transit X LLC for the construction of Podway along municipal rights of way.
See, he showed up.
Hi,
Hi,
you may speak.
I'm Mike Stanley. I live in Boston, and Jim Repass has lived in Leominster for a couple of decades. And I'm not sure, I wanted I could give a very short overview and then sort of open up and however you want to sort of take it. This is really just a recommendation back to the city council. So I wanted to be able to give you sort of what it is that we're proposing. essentially we're proposing a new transportation system.
No, that's the
Oh, that's it?
See,
Yep.
Sounds right there.
I see it, I know, I got, yeah.
Is that
How
possible?
cool that is.
And so this is an example of the vehicle. So it's a suspended pod. And so you have,
That's really
so this is a transportation system that's eliminating congestion, solar powered. It provides safety on the roads. There's affordable fares. It's 100% privately financed. And so what our aim is to reduce personal car use and be able to have a personal mass transit system. And so these can go along highways, railways, so if you go along the rail trail, if you go along secondary streets, if you're going nonstop at 45 miles an hour within the urban setting, and then 150 if we were to build out to larger one. So you're boarding like a vehicle, like a car, so you're entering at just like a car level. Then it elevates to about 14 feet to the bottom of the pod, and then does an on-ramp and off-ramp to be able to get on. So we have projects starting in the Philippines. We have project financing from a major investment bank, Jefferies. We'll be starting a demonstration system at Boston University this year. Will be operational hopefully by the beginning of 2019. So what we would be proposing is that a pilot project in Leominster. So we'd imagine, so this would be sort of a 37-mile, would get about 95% of the people within a 5-minute walk. We'd probably start with a pilot system that would be a 12-mile with 205 pods. We'd have about 45% of the population within a 5-minute walk. We have a proposal, just kind of. So we've done a proposal for what would be for Leominster, and you might have seen that I did one for both a pilot project and then for a 37-mile network. And so the benefits, if we look at some of the things that you've been talking about today, traffic, being able to reduce commuter rail parking, reduce personal car use, manufacturing jobs, because if Leominster is one of the first, then we would be building factories in Leominster. We'd increase the use of open space because you don't need as much impermeable surfaces. We could use the rail trail. It would increase the ability of housing accessibility because essentially you bring everything convenient to public transit. It's a revenue generator. We do a 5% rev share, so we do a 5% in sort of taxes and fees for the use of the rights-of-way and municipal tax to the municipality. If there's sort of a larger build-out, it'd be 20 minutes to Logan. You'd have a 3-minute connection from the downtown to the train station, a very fast connection between the downtown and the mall. You'd be able to connect to Fitchburg, reduce noise, reduce crime. You take a pod to school, so you wouldn't have to do school busing. So you could make it, the next step would be an intercity network, so you connect up to Fitchburg, to Shirley, Devens, Air, where some of the manufacturing and jobs. Larger would be sort of Massachusetts and be able to sort of connect the major corridors and major areas in Massachusetts. Our process is that we start with a proposal, and we're looking for the essentially a legal structure that allows us to be able to build and operate a podway. Similar, if you kind of, what I modeled our request after was electric utility distribution company. So that's another high value assets, basically generic benefit, kind of a natural monopoly. And so that's kind of what we're modeling after, is just we need the ability to be able to have a clarification on the be able to build and operate. Once we get into the details, we do sort of the survey work and be able to show specific routes. So right now I'm just doing sort of general routes from a 1,000-foot level. But we'd be able to specify exactly how, essentially you're taking up parked car areas, wouldn't even have to take sidewalk space. The parking is integrated. Kind of think of it as like the equivalent of on-street parking, but it's just side parking on the along the rail. And And we're looking to, if we start a project, we start with the ridership and revenue study to make sure that Fitchburg is sort of relatively low density compared to a lot of the other areas. So you have to sort of make sure that economically it will work. My initial calculations is that it should. And what we basically are aiming to do is to replace the cars, buses, trains, and trucks. So now you're able to now use much more effective use of open space because your parking lots and all your routes really are detracting from a lot of the uses that you could have. Yeah, so we have a fare model that's based on a formula. So it's we sort of give up our ability to set arbitrary pricing. So even if it becomes a natural monopoly, which are protected. So it's based on median income. It's based on travel distance. There's discounts based on shared pods. Then I can answer all sorts of different questions of yeah.
So that's for 77 cents for a 3-kilometer pod ride? That's the,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
about
roughly speaking.
about 25 cents for a shared. I think what I quoted was for a shared pod, so a shared pod, not a shared compartment.
For shared, right.
Yeah, so it's still, even if it's not shared, you're talking about 4 times cheaper than an Uber or something like that, and then. And just to kind of give you a sense, so it's basically it's autonomous electric vehicle, so it's a 4-wheeled polyurethane wheels on steel track. Just the cabin is hanging below the vehicle, but they're all self-powered. It's not a powered rail type system, so and there's no moving parts in the rail, so it's not like a railroad where you have active switching elements. So it's all within the pod itself. So it's really like small roads. Right, I mean, because the roads aren't powered and they have no moving parts, so
Or
it's
like the ski tow.
well, ski has a lot of moving parts because essentially you have
Right.
your
Well, you got the
cables.
pulleys and
It's your
things like
cable.
that.
So this is more like a.
So each one's powered.
Each one is powered.
Yeah.
It's its own
So it's like a
power.
car. It's like an electric vehicle, right? It's like an electric car.
And is the track powered?
No, so there's no power.
So they're solar powered and they're.
Yeah, in fact, if I sort of look at, so there's a solar panel, standard solar panels that are between the two tracks, and they're feeding cylindrical batteries inside the poles. So you're storing the energy inside the infrastructure. You can hook up to the utility grid, which I'd recommend because it allows you to do sort of net metering and offset peak loads and other nice things. And then when your pods are stopped, that's when it's charging. So if it's like 10 to 20 seconds while the pod is going down and up, that's basically stationary. So it's charging up for another 5 or 10 minutes. So you can have, they call it sort of like a power snacking. So essentially your power
how does the
snacking.
pod traffic regulate itself? Just curious.
Yeah, it's all
Just gonna
software
have-
driven, so it's based on a synchronous design, so you sort of know where the openings are. And essentially have reserved, so you're looking at history of the traffic flow because it's pretty repeatable on a daily basis, and so you can kind of pre-schedule slots. So these are some of the systems so we've done sort of, mock-ups and different sort of full size and part size. So here's an example of where you'd be calling it down with either a phone or a kiosk. It would elevate, then go onto an on-ramp, and so pods are going by, and then you'll have an off-ramp, which you're not seeing the on and off-ramp in this dimension, but then sort of let you go down on the lift.
So you get out and the pod stays down, the lift goes back up?
Yeah, unless there's
The pod
somebody else
can't
to.
move on the ground, right?
Right, well, unless you have the street bogey, so you could, but that's not what I'm talking about now, but, we have
And
water
why
bogeys.
are you out here?
Why am I here?
Would this be like city for us?
Well, I mean, so I think it was, the history of Fitchburg is in plastics, as in railroad, right? So this is a plastic railroad. So, because essentially all of our tracks and equipment are pultruded polyester fiber resin. So they're essentially composites and
Leominster's
plastics.
plastic.
Leominster.
Pittsburgh was paper.
Sorry, yeah.
That's just,
So you didn't make any paper ones?
you didn't make paper ones, did you?
Well, there could be cellulose fiber instead of sort of, but
Inside the plastic. We're just giving you a
So,
hard time.
so you're looking for a recommendation from us for the city council to grant an easement. So do you have, I mean, is it a specific, I guess that's my question, I mean, what are we attaching the easement to, certain, is it Mechanic Street, is it Main Street?
So I
is
think what it would do
12?
is it would come back to you, because I think it's just a general recommendation, does it have merit
Look at it.
to look at? And then we would go back through the process to go specific, so every specific route, every specific pole placement, we would then have to have a whole other, so this is kind of like, it's a little bit of, let's say a different idea, so it kind of requires a couple of steps through this to just kind of acclimate and just.
Well, what I don't understand is like, somebody jumps in a pod and they go home and it's a 5-minute walk. They can leave the pod by the rail.
Well, there's side parking.
It's not your
so
pod.
No, it's just going back into
so
the
you
pool.
gotta call
So
the
it's,
pod down.
yeah, it may stay where it is, or it might be redistributed based on the demand necessary for the next day. So like, for example, if it's the last trip, then it might stay on the locals,
But there'll be a bunch of empty pods.
No, think of it as like cars. It's only going to, in fact, less than say Uber, because you're only having movement when you're adding value, right? So you're only going to be moving when there's sort of demand, or you need to reposition pods.
And you can have specific parking areas for them.
Yeah,
While they're waiting,
yeah.
obviously. Right.
And so that's kind of what you see sort of here, just because the parking is very dense, because essentially we're using one pod to replace about 40 vehicles is sort of a good kind of estimate. So you need 1/40th the amount of parking, and each pod takes up about 2 square meters or about, and a car with its out, is basically 150 square feet. So if in a traditional structured parking. So think of it as like 600 times less parking. So you don't really even think about parking that much. You think about it like bicycle parking. It's just, yeah, you need it and you need to plan for it, but it's just, so my initial calculations, I think you can see in there, is that I said the amount of total track that would have parking, side parking, would be about less than 10%. So you're looking at about, the 205 pods, 2 meters each pod, because essentially they also go underneath each other, so it's tessellating.
So there is it's driven by software, but still, you gotta have something that regulates the traffic flow, or one slams on the brakes, so to speak. I know it's just, it's a metaphor. How do the others adapt to that? And
So one is the only operating one that's in the United States, was done by the Department of Transportation and Boeing Company 40 years ago in Morgantown, West Virginia. Okay, so that was a little bit larger vehicles, concrete tracks, coal-powered steam, so just different technology. But this was done not even with software. That was done with a hardware, and the guy that's doing our control system was actually the Boeing engineer doing the control system for that. This was in Marlborough, Mass. At Raytheon, had a system about 20 years ago that they took down. That was a safety certified test system. So yeah, the software is pretty well known. It's sort of, think of it as like 100 times less complicated than an autonomous vehicle, where you have to do scene recognition, decide if you're going to hit grandma or the 2 kids. You're at a different level. So it's just the software is just, it's more than say an elevator, right? Because an elevator, we don't think of that, but that's an autonomous vehicle on exclusive right of way. But you don't have 2 cars sharing the same shaft. So it's kind of like a horizontal elevator where you have multiple pods sharing the same shaft. But it's interesting.
All right, so I'm just thinking procedurally here. This is a city council petition that you submitted to grant an easement. Is this worded exactly the way it's worded on the petition, to grant an easement? So, but are you really, I'm just trying to determine what we're voting on. So is it more of a vote for the city council to consider the granting of an easement?
So here's the thing, is we're not sure the actual process through all this, right? Because nobody's really done this before in this realm, right? So what we did is, we met with the mayor, and he said, okay, and we went to the city council, and then I think their process like, well, let's just send it to all the subcommittees. So let's send it to DPW, let's send it to you guys, and let's just get back feedback.
Okay.
Is kind of, and so we're gonna have to go through this. So don't think it's like, think of this as like a draft version of kind of what we're anticipating. And your recommendation is not a recommendation for that specific language, but just saying, does it have merit to further consider?
Yeah, that's what,
like
so we're on the same page, that's how I'm thinking about it too. So we could make a recommendation to the city council that
they should look
we've
into
met,
it further.
they look into it further to consider in the future. granting an easement in specific areas of the city that would be viable areas of the city for.
I move that.
And
Did
then
you get that,
any
Stephanie?
The
That's
actual
Paul's
building
motion.
else would come back to us for
Second.
recommendation, but it would be up to the
Well, we
city
don't really have a
council to
pot
approve.
rules either, so you've got a lot of work to do.
I know, we don't have a
You got a lot of
problem.
work. Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. and
I'll tell you,
a long way
it's a
off.
lot better than talking about marijuana, that's for sure.
It's more
So that was a
fascinating.
did you second his motion?
No, we did.
Oh, Pat did.
Could be
Okay.
actually a good
Motion.
combination for everybody, frankly.
So-
Taking investors?
So we have a motion and a
Using
Oh.
pot.
motion and a
Really
second
don't.
for the city council to
I
consider,
don't really like this thing.
I know.
to consider an easement in the future for inviolable areas of the city for this mode of transportation. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Well, good luck.
Instead of driving to get your pot, you take it out.
Right over the, right over the Mohawk.
All right, we're gonna move on to, so we have to schedule a public, speaking of marijuana, we're gonna schedule a public hearing for City Council Petition 40-18 to amend Article, at least right now to amend Article 18, Section 22-105 of the Leominster ordinance to include language regarding recreational marijuana facilities. We have to schedule this for a public hearing.
So
You're gonna do that May 7th?
May
Yes.
7th.
And we already have,
5, 7,
One at 6:30
6:50.
and one at 6:40.
And those are two,
6:50,
those are
5,
two
7,
potentially.
6:50. Yep.
Well, I think we'll know everything we need.
So moved, 5, 7 at 6:50.
okay,
Second, Tommy?
motion,
We are joint.
Oh.
What do we say?
motion
No, this is just,
6:50? Does that work? Motion made by Sal, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 6.4, schedule a public hearing for City Council Petition 4118 from the Planning Director amends Section, Article 11, Section 2260 of the ordinance to add language regarding the deep observation hole testing for stormwater infiltration and
So we're
detention.
gonna do that 5, 7 at 7, right?
Sure,
Okay,
that
so
won't
moved.
take that long.
No.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
All right.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 6.5, there's a
Okay, yeah.
workshop on April 28th on the open meeting law at 5:30, I'm sorry, April 24th. That's a Tuesday.
So,
Unfortunately, I cannot attend if it's a Tuesday.
let's see, 24th is a Tuesday.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't attend. If my schedule changes, I will be there. And any update, Kristen, on the new view liabilities?
No,
To
I was
assets?
hoping to hear back, and I left it on the agenda so I could give you notice, but I don't have anything.
Okay, that's good.
Sal, you're up.
Well, director's put executive session, none,
Oh, I
none,
didn't
none.
see the other, yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion
Okay, now I
carries.
gotta go.